Have you ever wondered what the government doesn't want us to see? In 1997, something strange happened. Something that's still sending ripples through conspiracy circles and declassified archives today. Satellite imagery, high-resolution photographs taken by U.S. spy satellites, vanished. Not just a few pictures, entire data sets. Thousands of frames, all wiped from existence. The official explanation? Data corruption. But former analysts, leaked memos, and later interviews hinted at something far more disturbing. Something that forced the CIA to pull the plug before the public ever got a glimpse. This is the story of why the CIA deleted those satellite images in 1997. And what they might have shown before they disappeared forever. To understand what happened in '97, we need to go back to the beginning of America's spy satellite obsession. In the 1960s, during the height of the Cold War, the U.S. launched a series of secret reconnaissance programs, Corona, Hexagon, and later KH-11 satellites. Their mission? To photograph every inch of Soviet territory, track missile silos, monitor nuclear facilities, and keep an eye on anything that moved. These satellites were powerful. By the 1980s, they could capture objects as small as a license plate from hundreds of miles above Earth. Every image, every data packet was classified top secret. Only the CIA, the NSA, and certain military branches had access. But as the Cold War ended, something changed. With the fall of the Soviet Union in 1991, the intelligence community faced a new question. Who do we spy on when the enemy collapses? The answer, as it turned out, might not have been on Earth at all. By 1994, a new initiative called the Historical Imagery Declassification Project began inside the CIA. Its goal was simple: release old satellite photographs to the public, especially the ones no longer relevant to national security. Scientists, geologists, and historians were thrilled. Old spy photos could reveal decades of environmental change: melting glaciers, shifting deserts, deforestation, stuff that could help humanity, not harm it. The program moved fast. Tens of thousands of images from the 1960s and 70s were scanned and made public through NASA and the U.S. Geological Survey. For the first time, researchers could use secret Cold War imagery for climate and archaeological research. But buried inside those archives were later sets of images, files dated between 1995 and 1997 that weren't supposed to exist. And those, according to multiple sources, are the ones that disappeared. In early 1997, analysts working with a classified archive at Langley noticed a massive gap in one of the data repositories known as Vault 7S. Entire collections from 2 satellites believed to be part of the KH-12 series were missing. The official word? Routine data deletion due to technical errors during system migration. But that explanation raised eyebrows. Why were only specific timeframes and coordinates missing? And why did those coordinates line up with 3 regions that have been the center of countless UFO and anomalous activity reports? 1. The Nevada Test and Training Range, home to the infamous Area 51. 2. A remote section of Siberia near Lake Baikal. And 3, and most baffling of all, sections of the South Atlantic Ocean, an area associated with strange electromagnetic anomalies. When independent researchers later tried to access these frames through the Freedom of Information Act, they were told the files never existed. Except they did. Internal memos released years later confirmed their deletion, but what they showed remains officially unknown. Enter Michael W., a former image analyst who worked under a private CIA contractor in the 1990s. In a 2008 interview, never aired publicly but summarized in leaked transcripts, He described something haunting. According to Michael, his team was testing image enhancement software on raw KH-12 data. They focused on frames captured over the Nevada desert, dated February 1997. At first, everything looked routine. Runway structures, hangars, shadow anomalies. Then, something caught their eye. A perfectly circular object, hovering several hundred feet above the desert floor. It wasn't a lens flare, a drone, or a weather balloon. It had symmetry, depth, and motion. When they zoomed in frame by frame, the object appeared to emit a faint heat signature, inconsistent with any known aircraft. And here's the kicker: it cast no shadow. Before they could finish analysis, the files were removed from their system. 2 days later, an internal memo ordered full erasure of the project backup. The reason given: security contamination, source material compromised. Michael claimed he never saw those images again. Months later, the CIA shut down access to that entire database segment. Publicly, the CIA maintained that the deleted images were part of a data integrity issue caused by a server crash during archival transfer. But even in 1997, insiders knew that excuse didn't hold up. Government data centers used redundant magnetic tape backups. A full data loss across multiple servers was almost impossible unless someone intentionally scrubbed it. What's more, internal system logs, later obtained through a whistleblower's FOIA release, showed the deletion commands were entered manually by an authorized user. That means someone chose which data to remove. The deletions occurred over the span of 3 days, April 14th to April 16th, 1997. And those same days, multiple reports of strange sky events flooded local law enforcement near Groom Lake, Nevada. Coincidence? Maybe. But in the intelligence world, coincidences are just secrets that haven't been explained yet. When journalists began asking questions in the early 2000s, the CIA refused comment. But a few years later, during a 2011 declassification push, something slipped through. A small batch of internal communications, heavily redacted, revealed references to a project codenamed Blue Fire. Its purpose? Analysis of anomalous imagery captured by high-orbit surveillance platforms. Sound familiar? Blue Fire was quietly terminated in late 1997, the same year those satellite images vanished. Even stranger, funding for the project was reallocated to a Department of Defense research division linked to space domain awareness, essentially tracking unidentified objects in orbit. Whatever those deleted images showed, it seems the government didn't just erase them, they moved the investigation somewhere even deeper underground. This wasn't the first time data had gone missing. Back in the 1980s, NASA lost telemetry tapes from the Apollo 11 mission, data that could have shown the moon landing in higher fidelity. Officially, they were reused to save money. Unofficially, no one's sure they were ever meant to resurface. The CIA's deletion of 1997 satellite images fits that same pattern, a quiet, surgical removal of evidence under the cover of bureaucratic excuses. But unlike Apollo footage, this wasn't history. It was real-time surveillance data. Someone didn't want those images ever reaching daylight. By the late 1990s, whispers about the 1997 satellite purge had become a quiet obsession within certain research circles. UFO investigators, open-source analysts, and amateur astronomers began cross-referencing what little data was left. They discovered something chilling. The missing coordinates from the deleted frames didn't just correspond to random patches of the Earth's surface. They aligned almost perfectly with known electromagnetic anomalies. The first was the Nevada Range, as expected, but the second, in Siberia, overlapped an area long feared by Russian geologists, a region where compasses spin erratically and signals vanish without explanation. And the third, the South Atlantic Zone, lay directly within the South Atlantic Anomaly, where the Earth's magnetic field dips unnaturally low, exposing satellites to higher radiation. Why were all three target zones areas of magnetic distortion? And why were all the images taken within a narrow 60-day window? It was as if the satellites were tracking something that moved across these regions in a consistent path. Let's focus on that last one for a moment, the South Atlantic Anomaly, often nicknamed the Bermuda Triangle of space. It's a region over the southern Atlantic Ocean where the Van Allen radiation belts, Earth's magnetic shield, come unusually close to the surface. This causes high radiation levels that interfere with satellites, spacecraft, and sometimes even commercial flights. But in 1997, the anomaly behaved differently. Telemetry from several satellites, including NASA's Terra and NOAA's weather systems, showed unexplained spikes in energy levels, fluctuations far beyond normal radiation bursts. What made these events even stranger was their pattern. They occurred at regular intervals, roughly every 90 minutes, as if synchronized with an orbiting body. Some physicists argued it was due to solar storms, but solar activity in 1997 was relatively calm. So what was causing the rhythmic interference? Leaked documentation from the CIA's Internal Science Division, Office of Research and Development, mentions a mysterious term: luminous atmospheric phenomena, class delta. These were defined as self-luminous objects of unknown origin observed at high altitude exhibiting magnetic interference properties. In simpler terms, glowing things in the sky that mess with satellites. Several insiders later connected these to the missing images. If the KH-12 satellites caught one of these Class Delta events in the South Atlantic Anomaly, it could explain why those images were erased. Perhaps they revealed something the CIA couldn't explain, or worse, couldn't control. Now, the Siberian coordinates tell a different story. According to Russian declassified documents, in March 1997, residents near Irkutsk and Lake Baikal reported seeing massive flashes of light in the night sky, silent, brilliant, and spherical. At the same time, seismic sensors detected shallow tremors, but with no corresponding tectonic activity. It wasn't an earthquake, it was something else. Several local fishermen described seeing a mirror-like disk hovering above the frozen lake surface, rotating slowly before vanishing into the clouds. Fast forward 2 weeks, and the CIA satellite files covering this exact area go missing. Coincidence again? Or a connection? Even more curious, Russia's own satellites also experienced data interruptions during the same period. It seems both superpowers lost visual coverage of that exact region at the exact same time. To this day, the event remains officially unexplained. Unofficially, it's known among certain circles as the Baikal Echo. If you map out all three coordinates, Nevada, Siberia, and the South Atlantic,
you'll notice something fascinating. Draw straight lines between them, and they form a continuous path that wraps around the Earth diagonally. It's almost like a flight trajectory, one that starts in the North American desert, cuts through Asia, and dips toward the southern oceans. Some independent analysts speculated that the satellites were not imaging static points, but rather following a moving object, something in high orbit or atmospheric glide, an object that the government wanted to erase every trace of. In 2003, a declassified fragment of a Pentagon briefing from that era mentioned fast movers, unidentified aerial phenomena capable of shifting from orbital altitude to near ground levels within seconds. Sound familiar? That's the same terminology used in modern UAP, or unidentified aerial phenomena reports from the US Navy. So it seems the mystery of 1997 might not be isolated. It could be an early chapter in the ongoing story of unidentified objects that military sensors have been tracking for decades.
Years later, Michael W., the image analyst from Part 1, resurfaced online under an anonymous forum alias. He claimed to have reconstructed one of the deleted images from leftover fragments stored on redundant systems. He described what he saw as a metallic ellipsoid with perfect reflectivity, roughly 30 meters long, suspended in the atmosphere at 40,000 feet. The reflection of the desert terrain beneath it was visible, almost as if it were mimicking the ground to camouflage itself. When he tried to post the reconstructed file, the link vanished within hours. Shortly afterward, the forum itself was taken offline due to a server intrusion. Coincidence? Maybe. But the digital fingerprints led back to an IP block owned by a US defense contractor, one that, at the time, was known to work closely with the CIA. Michael disappeared again. No one has heard from him since 2013.
In 2018, through a batch of declassified satellite research budgets, the name Blue Fire resurfaced, but this time under a new department, the National Reconnaissance Office, NRO. The NRO had absorbed most of the CIA's space surveillance duties by the late 1990s. Among its classified programs were several aimed at non-terrestrial observation. That term, non-terrestrial, appears multiple times in a 2019 budget document reviewed by journalists. It doesn't specify extraterrestrial, but it's clear these weren't conventional weather or spy satellites. Could the deletion of 1997's imagery have been part of a transfer of sensitive data to NRO custody? If so, the CIA's so-called data loss might have simply been a cover story to hide a shift in control. When an image shows something beyond the known atmosphere, something not human-made, the question isn't who captured it, but who's allowed to keep it.
Here's where things get even weirder. Every satellite image carries metadata: timestamps, coordinates, altitude, sensor type, and orientation data. For most of the 1997 KH-12 sets, that metadata was blanked or replaced with placeholder text. However, forensic recovery of partial logs revealed two specific timestamps: April 14, 1997, 02:32 GMT, April 15, 1997, 18:47 GMT. The two times are roughly 40 hours apart, almost matching the global trajectory of the three anomalous regions. Whatever these satellites were following, it seemed to move around the planet in less than 2 days. That's not an aircraft. That's not a weather balloon.
That's orbital level velocity. Yet somehow, it was visible from the ground in several regions within that same window. It behaved like nothing known to human science at the time, or even today.
Around 2005, a small group of amateur astronomers in Chile claimed to have detected an unregistered satellite briefly visible in low orbit, one that didn't match any known catalog. Its surface, they said, was mirror-like and irregular, tumbling slowly before vanishing into shadow. When they compared its trajectory with orbital data, they found it matched a decayed path similar to a 1997 CIA satellite orbit. Was it debris, or was it the same object those satellites once tracked? No one could prove it, but it was enough to reignite interest in the 1997 deletions. For a moment, the mystery flickered back into the public eye. Then, once again, silence. By the time the Freedom of Information Act requests began piling up, the CIA had changed its data infrastructure entirely. Old servers were wiped, tapes destroyed, and analog archives digitized, a word that, in intelligence speak, often means buried under new classification. Researchers hoping to find traces of the lost satellite data hit wall after wall. Every file request came back with the same stamped phrase, "Record not found, destroyed per retention policy." It's the bureaucratic equivalent of a black hole. Once information falls into it, nothing escapes. When information disappears from official archives, it creates a vacuum. And nature, as well as human curiosity, hates a vacuum. After the 1997 purge, two main theories emerged to explain why the CIA would risk erasing entire sections of classified imagery. The first, the images revealed something non-human, proof of alien craft operating in or near Earth's atmosphere. The second, the images caught a glimpse of something very human, a black-budget aerospace program that the public wasn't supposed to know existed. For years, researchers, insiders, and skeptics have argued over which version is closer to the truth. But the deeper you dig, the harder it becomes to separate the two, because by 1997, the boundary between alien technology and military experimentation had already begun to blur. Let's start with the most sensational theory, that the deleted satellite images captured extraterrestrial craft. Several intelligence leaks from that era mention unidentified fast movers entering Earth's atmosphere at impossible angles, as if dropping from orbit with no visible propulsion. One document, allegedly part of the Blue Fire Project brief, references objects of unknown origin displaying erratic trajectory behavior inconsistent with gravitational drag. Translated from bureaucratic jargon, something in space was moving in ways that physics shouldn't allow. Multiple sources, including declassified NORAD logs, confirm that uncorrelated targets, meaning radar contacts that didn't match any known satellite, rocket, or debris, were tracked repeatedly between March and April 1997. And remember, that's the same window when the CIA deleted its imagery. Coincidence? Hardly anyone in the research community thinks so anymore. Though the official imagery is gone, fragments have surfaced, tiny remnants that hint at what might have been erased. One such piece appeared in 2002 when a retired systems engineer named David Lang revealed a recovered checksum log from a KH-12 satellite. That log contained hash data, digital fingerprints, referencing image files that no longer exist. According to Lang, the checksums were tagged with the phrase unidentified luminant objects. He couldn't reconstruct the pictures themselves, but he confirmed their size and encoding matched full-resolution optical captures, meaning the deleted files weren't text reports or sensor readings, They were photographs. Whatever those frames showed, they weren't random errors. They were images someone decided the world should never see. To understand why such drastic censorship might have occurred, you have to look at the world in 1997. The Cold War had ended 6 years earlier. The Soviet Union was gone, but Russia still possessed thousands of nuclear warheads and a fractured military structure. The U.S. intelligence community was in flux, downsizing, reorganizing, outsourcing. This was the perfect climate for secrets to slip through the cracks. At the same time, NASA's Mars Pathfinder mission was capturing global headlines. Public fascination with space exploration was surging, and any revelation about unknown craft could have triggered mass hysteria, or worse, geopolitical instability. Imagine if the CIA publicly admitted that its top-tier satellites had photographed something of non-terrestrial origin orbiting Earth. What would Russia, China, or even allies like France or the UK do with that information? That's the argument some former analysts make, that the data wasn't destroyed. It was classified at a level above top secret, under what's known as code word access. When something becomes code word locked, even high-level officials can be denied access. In that sense, the deletion was never really about erasure, it was about containment.
Now, let's flip the lens. The second major theory is that the CIA deleted the imagery not because it captured aliens, but because it accidentally revealed the United States' own secret technology. Throughout the 1990s, the Pentagon was quietly developing next-generation aerospace vehicles, projects so classified that even the president may not have had full briefings. Rumors of experimental craft, dubbed black triangles or aerospace platforms, had circulated for years. One in particular, a rumored vehicle known as the TR-3A Black Manta, supposedly used advanced propulsion and stealth coatings far ahead of its time. Eyewitnesses near Groom Lake in Nevada claimed to see massive triangular objects with silent engines performing impossible maneuvers at night. Now remember, one of the deleted coordinates was directly above Area 51. It's possible that the CIA's satellites accidentally captured these classified flight tests, which were never meant to appear in the historical record. If the imagery leaked or was declassified with these frames intact, it would have exposed technology the Pentagon still denies exists.
Here's where things overlap. Some insiders have long suggested that the so-called UFOs seen over the Nevada desert were not alien craft at all, but prototypes based on recovered non-human technology. This idea, often dismissed as fringe, gained traction after several military contractors publicly acknowledged in later years that reverse engineering projects had existed since at least the 1980s. Companies like Lockheed Martin's Skunk Works and Northrop Grumman's Phantom Works were both heavily involved in experimental propulsion systems during this period. So imagine this scenario. In early 1997, one of these classified test flights was accidentally caught in high detail by a CIA satellite. Rather than admitting that their own surveillance tools had exposed secret U.S. technology, the agency simply wiped the data, even internally, to prevent cross-branch fallout. That explanation fits with the timeline, but it also raises an uncomfortable question. If it was just human tech, why the extreme secrecy? Why classify it under projects associated with anomalous atmospheric phenomena? Unless, of course, those two categories weren't as separate as we've been told. Declassified fragments of Project Bluefire suggest it served a dual purpose: monitoring unknown aerial events and testing satellite calibration against experimental aerospace assets. In plain English, that means the same satellites used to photograph potential UFOs were also used to monitor classified U.S. aircraft.
If that's true, then the 1997 deletion may have been part of an internal tug-of-war between the CIA and the Department of Defense. One wanted transparency, the other demanded total silence. The result? A compromise disguised as a technical glitch. Erase the images, kill the paper trail, and bury the truth in overlapping security programs.
Following the deletions, something curious happened. All discussion of unidentified aerial phenomena within intelligence circles went cold. Between 1998 and 2003, barely any internal memos mention anomalous sightings. It's as if someone hit a giant pause button on the entire conversation. This era is now referred to by some insiders as the deep freeze, not because the sightings stopped, but because the report stopped being written. If the 1997 purge represented a cover-up, then the deep freeze was the lock that sealed it. And yet, silence only made the mystery grow. Every missing frame, every redacted report, every data corruption claim fueled more speculation. Fast forward to the 2020s, when the Pentagon finally admitted that unidentified aerial phenomena are real. Objects tracked by military sensors that defy explanation. Suddenly, fragments of the old 1997 mystery started resurfacing. Researchers found eerie parallels between the modern UAP descriptions, metallic, silent, tic-tac-shaped craft, and the very same ellipsoid object described by Michael W., the analyst who saw the deleted satellite frames. It's as if the 1997 incident was a precursor to today's official UAP investigations. The only difference? Back then, the public wasn't ready to know. Now, the government can no longer hide it so easily. So, what's more believable? That the CIA erased proof of alien presence, or that it scrubbed evidence of its own technology? The truth may lie somewhere in between. If reverse engineering was underway in the 1990s, even in its earliest stages, then those test flights could have produced visuals unlike anything conventional. A satellite image of a prototype derived from recovered materials could easily be mistaken for a UFO. In that case, the deletion wouldn't just protect a national secret, it would protect a secret about where that technology came from. That, many argue, is the real reason for the purge. Here's the haunting part. Even after all the leaks, whistleblowers, and declassifications, the question remains, why erase everything? If it were merely about protecting advanced aircraft, a simple classification order would have sufficed. But full deletion, erasing from backups, server mirrors, and even logs, is an overkill move, one typically reserved for existential threats. Maybe the truth wasn't that the imagery revealed technology we couldn't comprehend, but a reality we weren't ready to face. A reality that blurred the line between human and something else. After the 1997 purge, everything went quiet. The Historical Imagery Declassification Project, once a proud example of government transparency, suddenly froze new releases. Researchers who had been granted clearance were informed that data reorganization would temporarily restrict access. That temporary suspension lasted more than 5 years. Behind closed doors, the CIA reorganized its digital infrastructure. Entire archival servers were replaced. Older formats were destroyed, and paper indexes were scanned into new, secure systems that conveniently omitted all references to the deleted sets. When journalists questioned the delay, the agency repeated the same line. There is no record of any deletion event during 1997. Some materials were lost due to digital migration. But a few insiders knew better. One retired systems engineer later claimed that the data didn't just vanish, it was transferred upward, meaning it was reclassified under a different agency and given a new designation that effectively erased its original CIA origin.
a bureaucratic sleight of hand that made the deleted images technically not CIA property anymore. And once it's not the CIA's property, it's outside the reach of FOIA requests.
Between 1998 and 2003, an odd phenomenon began to trouble Earth scientists and environmental researchers: missing temporal data. Normally, environmental satellite imagery helps track glacial retreat, deforestation, and other long-term changes. But when geologists examined archived imagery from the mid to late 90s, they found strange chronological holes, sequences missing across specific latitudes, entire months of coverage gone. The missing frames matched eerily well with the same coordinates from the alleged CIA deletion. Publicly, NASA and the USGS attributed these gaps to satellite calibration errors. Privately, some analysts admitted that those timeframes coincided with unexplained interference spikes, bursts of radio noise that caused system resets across multiple platforms, including civilian ones. Whatever interfered with CIA satellites in 1997, it seemed to affect everything else too.
In 2009, 12 years after the purge, something strange happened again. Astronomers in Argentina captured an unexplained aerial phenomenon over the South Atlantic, a glowing orb that moved erratically, then vanished without radar trace. The coordinates? Almost identical to the deleted South Atlantic imagery zone. The Argentine Air Force investigated, but found no conventional explanation. Radiation sensors picked up small fluctuations similar to those recorded in the original 1997 anomaly. For the first time in over a decade, the phantom of the deletion reappeared, not in a file, but in the sky itself. Some researchers began to wonder, had whatever appeared in 1997 returned? Around 2011, a new generation of data forensics experts began combing through old intelligence backup tapes acquired through legal channels. One independent researcher, who went by the pseudonym Kepler-1, claimed to discover encrypted blocks hidden in declassified imagery repositories. These blocks contained fragmented, partially corrupted binary data that, when reconstructed, revealed faint outlines of geometric structures, circular patterns surrounded by atmospheric haze. Kepler-1 described them as optical ghosts, faint remnants of deleted images that survived through redundancy in compression logs. When he tried to publish his findings, his servers were hit with a denial of service attack traced to multiple foreign and domestic IP addresses. He vanished from online activity 2 months later. The fragments were never verified, but for many in the community, this was the closest anyone had come to resurrecting what the CIA had worked so hard to erase.
In 2012, during a congressional budget hearing, an obscure line item appeared under the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency budget summary. It referred to legacy reconnaissance imagery repatriation from partner agencies. In simpler terms, the NGA was taking back old satellite archives that used to belong to the CIA. The phrasing "partner agencies" was key. It meant multiple organizations were involved, possibly including the NRO and the Air Force's Space Command. Analysts suspect that this repatriation was actually a reclassification sweep, moving sensitive imagery into more modern, secure databases before the global transparency movement could reach it. In other words, the CIA didn't destroy the deleted images, it simply handed them off to someone else under a new name.
By the late 2010s, as government acknowledgement of unidentified aerial phenomena gained traction, whispers of the 1997 deletion resurfaced inside Washington. One staffer on the Senate Intelligence Committee reportedly described it as the first modern UAP containment operation. He claimed that the CIA's erasure was an early example of strategic denial, a protocol designed to handle incidents that couldn't be explained within known science. He never used the word extraterrestrial. Instead, he called it a contact event of uncertain origin. That phrase, contact event, would later appear in the 2021 Pentagon UAP report, nearly 25 years later.
In 2017, an anonymous whistleblower leaked a small batch of internal memos to investigative journalist Renee Carver. These memos, stamped confidential/blue fire, referenced optical anomalies recorded over secured installations between February-April 1997. Though no images were attached, one note described a reflective spheroid object displaying non-ballistic motion. That exact phrasing, reflective spheroid, non-ballistic motion, would later match multiple Navy UAP reports from 2004 to 2019. It's as if the same type of object had been seen again and again over decades. But only in 1997 did someone manage to capture it clearly and then delete the evidence.
By 2020, the U.S. government began releasing official UAP videos, Tic Tac, Go Fast, Gimbal. Each showed unidentified craft performing maneuvers beyond known human capability. For the first time, mainstream media discussed non-human technology openly, something unthinkable in 1997. Behind the scenes, however, the intelligence community quietly updated its data retention policies. Agencies were now required to preserve all anomalous imagery, regardless of classification. Insiders called it the Anti-1997 Clause, a bureaucratic safeguard against future cover-ups. The irony? It took 23 years for the CIA's mistake, or perhaps deliberate decision, to force an industry-wide reform.
By cross-referencing modern UAP data with declassified orbital records, independent analysts discovered something remarkable. Several modern UAP hotspots align precisely with the same 1997 coordinates: Nevada, Siberia, the South Atlantic. Whatever moved across those regions nearly 3 decades ago appears to have reappeared again and again on modern military sensors. If that's true, then the 1997 event wasn't an isolated anomaly. It was a cycle, a recurring pattern of appearances following a global trajectory. And if that pattern continues, another crossing could occur again soon.
In 2024, when asked directly about the missing 1997 imagery, a CIA spokesperson told reporters, quote, "No imagery matching that description has ever existed within our holdings." End quote. It was the same line used for decades, cold, rehearsed, and deliberately hollow. But the phrasing reveals something subtle. They didn't say the images never existed. They said they never existed within our holdings. In intelligence language, that means someone else holds them. Perhaps the NRO, perhaps the Department of Defense, perhaps an entirely different branch of authority we're not supposed to know about.
Some researchers believe the images, and possibly other related data, now reside in a compartment known only by its rumored codename, Vault Orion. According to former defense contractors, Vault Orion isn't a physical room, but a digital enclave, a classified archive hosted across distributed military cloud servers. Its access level is so restricted that not even congressional oversight committees are aware of what it contains. The rumor goes that Vault Orion houses materials deemed too ontologically disruptive for public disclosure, evidence that challenges the fundamental narrative of what humanity knows about life, space, and itself. If the deleted 1997 satellite images are indeed part of that archive, it would explain everything. The deletion wasn't destruction, it was preservation, hidden under layers of secrecy, until the world is ready to understand what they showed.
Whether alien, experimental, or something in between, the 1997 deletion changed the course of intelligence history. It redefined how agencies handle unknown data. It birthed new classification levels, interagency task forces, and a doctrine of strategic ambiguity. Always admit the unexplained exists, but never say what it is. Even today, satellite imagery experts whisper about the red zones, coordinates flagged for automatic review before public release. Some of those zones trace back directly to the 1997 event. It's as if the shadow of that decision still guides how our planet is watched from above.
More than 2 decades later, no one outside the intelligence community has seen the deleted frames. But the echoes remain in the stories, the leaks, the patterns of censorship that followed. Every so often, a blurry leaked image circulates online, claiming to be one of the lost photos. Most are fakes, but the real ones? They might still be sitting somewhere, encrypted, untouched, waiting for the moment the world decides it's finally ready to look. Because in the end, the truth can't be deleted. It can only be delayed. And maybe, just maybe, the CIA's greatest secret from 1997 isn't gone. It's waiting.
History has a strange way of repeating itself, not in identical events, but in familiar shapes, echoes of choices, shadows of fear. The CIA's 1997 deletion wasn't just a moment of secrecy, it was a pattern. One that's replayed every time the human race edges too close to something bigger than itself. Every generation faces a revelation it isn't ready for. For the Cold War, it was nuclear power. For the space age, it was the realization that we're not alone in the cosmos. For the digital age, it might be something even stranger, the realization that we've already seen the proof and someone decided we shouldn't. That's what 1997 represents, not a cover-up of a single event, but a decision about what humanity is allowed to know.
In philosophy, there's a question that echoes through time. If the truth would destroy your reality, would you still want to see it? Maybe that's what the CIA faced in 1997. A truth too big, too destabilizing, too alien in every sense of the word to let out. Because imagine the implications if those satellite images did capture something not of this Earth, the first undeniable, high-resolution, verifiable evidence of a non-human presence. It would rewrite science, religion, politics, everything. World economies might collapse overnight. Religions might fracture or evolve. Borders, wars, ideologies, all rendered meaningless by the simple fact that we are not the only intelligent species here. Maybe that's why they pressed delete, not to hide from us, but to protect us from what they saw. There's another theory, quieter and more haunting. It's called the Guardian hypothesis. According to this idea, there are factions within intelligence and defense communities who view themselves not as suppressors of truth, but as guardians of stability. They believe humanity must evolve slowly, that premature exposure to certain knowledge could cause irreversible chaos. Under that philosophy, the 1997 deletion wasn't an act of censorship. It was an act of guardianship, the removal of something civilization wasn't ready to process. To them, the public's fear of the unknown wasn't the problem. The known unknown was. Because once you can see it, once you can measure it, it's real.
and reality can't be contained once it's proven. The CIA, under this theory, wasn't covering up aliens. It was covering up our inability to handle the truth.
But not everyone believes in benevolent guardians. Some see the 1997 deletion as part of a deeper control system, one designed to keep knowledge as currency, traded only among the elite. If you control information, you control perception. And if you control perception, you control belief itself. The CIA, the NRO, the contractors, the shadow networks, to them, information isn't truth, it's leverage. Every deleted frame, every redacted page, every technical malfunction becomes a subtle form of control. By deciding what humanity doesn't see, they shape what humanity can imagine. Maybe those images weren't deleted because of what they showed. Maybe they were deleted because of what they proved. Proof that power doesn't belong to governments or militaries, but to those who decide what the rest of us are allowed to know.
Fast forward to today. The technology that once belonged only to spy agencies is now in everyone's pocket. We all carry cameras that can see the sky. We all have access to satellite maps, real-time tracking, and AI tools that can enhance imagery the way intelligence analysts once did in secret. And yet, we still don't have answers. We've come full circle. The same questions, the same lights, the same government denials. The only difference is now the whole world is watching. If the 1997 deletion was about control, that control is slipping. Because for the first time in history, truth isn't centralized, it's crowdsourced. And that means even if those deleted images never resurface, they've already changed the future. Because now millions of people are asking the same forbidden question. What did they see up there?
Dr. Anya Rojas, a physicist who worked on satellite calibration systems in the early 2000s, once said something profound during a private symposium. If data vanishes from the archive, it means one of two things. It was meaningless, or it was the most meaningful thing ever recorded. The 1997 deletion fits the latter. No one erases worthless data with that level of precision. You erase only what can't be denied. And that's the dilemma scientists face even today. How do you pursue truth when truth itself has become classified? Because somewhere, in a hidden server or a sealed vault, lie the images that could answer one of humanity's oldest questions. Are we alone? And those images have been unseen longer than many of us have been alive.
It's now been over 25 years since those satellite frames vanished. Most of the people who ordered their deletion are retired, some gone forever. New generations of analysts and engineers have inherited the digital remains of a mystery they're not allowed to ask about. But the echoes linger. In late-night chat rooms, in encrypted leaks, in the quiet testimonies of retired intelligence officers who've seen things they can't describe. The story of the 1997 deletion lives on, passed down like a digital ghost haunting the corridors of history. And as new UAP task forces, congressional hearings, and scientific coalitions continue to peel back the curtain, the same question keeps resurfacing. Why was that data deleted? And what if it wasn't? Because sometimes secrets don't vanish. They're reborn in new disguises. Old files re-encrypted, renamed, or absorbed into new programs with new code words. The deletion may have been real, but the information itself might still exist, buried, waiting to be found by someone who knows where to look.
If disclosure, real, undeniable proof, ever comes, it won't arrive in a press release. It'll happen quietly, almost accidentally. A scientist cross-referencing old orbital data,
an engineer decoding a corrupted file, a researcher noticing patterns in radiation signatures from 1997 that repeat in 2025. And then, in that moment, the deletion will unravel, not through conspiracy, but through curiosity, because truth has a way of resurfacing when technology finally catches up. When that day comes, maybe those lost satellite images won't be lost at all. Maybe they'll reappear in a way no one can suppress, a truth too interconnected, too digital, too global to ever delete again.
So what did the CIA delete in 1997? No one can say for certain. But if we piece together the fragments, the witnesses, the anomalies, the coordinates, a picture begins to form. Something appeared in our skies that year, something intelligent. Something observed not by a single eyewitness or a shaky camcorder, but by the most advanced surveillance instruments humanity had ever built. And when the people who saw those images realized what they were looking at, they made a decision to erase, to silence, to bury. Maybe it wasn't about aliens. Maybe it wasn't about technology. Maybe it was about us. Our fear, our fragility, our readiness to face the universe. Because the hardest secret to keep isn't what's out there. It's what we're capable of denying right here on Earth.
We stare into the stars every night, searching for answers, for meaning, for connection. But maybe the answers aren't waiting in space. Maybe they're sitting on a deleted hard drive, locked in an encrypted vault beneath Langley, frozen in time since 1997. A handful of images, a few thousand pixels, a piece of truth we weren't allowed to see. One day, when the right person opens the right file, history might finally blink. And in that instant, the sky itself, everything we thought we knew about it, might change forever. Until then, the mystery remains. The satellites keep watching. And somewhere, high above the clouds, the truth still circles the Earth.